Welcome to my channel. This is CAPT.BINOY Varakil, Assistant Professor, Department of English, St. Joseph's College, Kozhikode, Kerala. We are discussing Aristotle's The Poetics, and this is the fourth lecture in this series. In the previous lectures, we have discussed chapters 1 to 8 of the Poetics, and in this lecture, we are discussing chapter 9, 10, and 11 of the Poetics of Aristotle. And this series of lectures will complete the discussion of all the chapters of the Poetics, 26 chapters, and we will also discuss the most important questions, themes, and other topics, especially the terms and terminologies that Aristotle used in the Poetics. And now let us go to chapter 9. In fact, chapter 9, before discussing chapter 9, we have to look at chapter 8 once again, just a quick review. So chapter 8 was about the unity of plot, and in the discussion of the unity of plot, we just listened to Aristotle, and Aristotle said that unity refers to the centering of all the plot's action around a common theme or idea. And thereafter he spoke to us about the determinate structure, of tragedy, and that we know that determinate structure refers to the very centering of all the incidents, right? Like the plot all hinges on a sequence of casual imitative events. So if one were to remove even one part of the plot, the entire tragedy will be disjointed and disturbed. Okay, so now we move on to chapter 9. Chapter 9 is titled Poetic Truth and Historic Truth. So in the beginning of the chapter, although it is titled Poetic Truth and Historic Truth, Aristotle speaks about universality. And we know that universality refers to the necessity of a given character to act and speak according to most humans would react in a given situation, or rather according to the law of probability or necessity. This is what we mean by universality. Say for example, Macbeth can't be Hamlet. Macbeth can only be Macbeth. Similarly, we have of course Othello. Othello is just Othello, right? And we believe whatever Othello does, speaks, and there isn't any doubt about that. So there can be characters like Macbeth or Othello anywhere in the world, and that's what Aristotle means by universality. And after just defining what universality is, Aristotle speaks to us about the very title, that is of course Poetic Truth and Historic Truth. So universality refers to the necessity of a given character to speak or act according to how all or most humans would react in a given situation, according to the law of probability or necessity. And here we have Aristotle just talking more about the very different elements of plot. Some digression we can see here. So he ends this discussion of plot elements by pointing out his particular disdain for episodic plots. So this chapter, after defining universality, Aristotle just mentions that he doesn't like the plays with, of course, episodic plots. And what are episodic plots? Episodic plots are plots in which episodes succeed one another without probable or necessary sequence. So like a weekly sitcom, for instance, and hence are inorganic. He says that such type of plots in which episodes succeed one another without probable or necessary sequence, he says that they are inorganic. And thereafter Aristotle speaks to us about the very the very incidents, right? Say for example, it will be clear from what I have said that it is not the poet's function to describe what has actually happened, but the kinds of things that might happen, that is, that could happen, because they are in the circumstances either probable or necessary. So according to Aristotle, a poet has to, a dramatist has to just mention or speak about or describe. It is the poet's function to describe what has happened, but the kinds of things that might happen, that could happen, because they are in the circumstances either probable or necessary. So probable or necessary things have to be spoken by, introduced by the poet according to Aristotle. The difference between the historian and the poet is not that the one writes in prose and the other writes in verse, but the work of Herodotus might be put into verse, and in this metrical form it would be no less a kind of history than it is without meter. The difference is that the one tells of what has happened, the other of the kinds of things that might happen. So this is the difference between poetic truth and historic truth. Historic truth, the historian speaks about what happened, but a poet speaks about what might happen. For this reason, poetry is something more philosophical and more worthy of serious attention than history. For while poetry is concerned with universal truths, history treats of particular facts. So this is very, very important. And here Aristotle has given us a very specific and detailed discussion of what poetic truth is and what a poet does and what a historian does. So it's very, very clear. Okay, so the historian speaks about what has happened, the poet speaks about what might happen, things that which may happen, and this is the very, very clear and easy definition or distinction between poetic truth and historic truth. And now okay, he continues the second part of the chapter. Aristotle continues just to elaborate universal truths. He in the beginning speaks about universal or universality, and thereafter in the last part of chapter 9 he continues to speak about universality. By universal truths are to be understood the kinds of things a certain type of person will probably or necessarily say or do in a given situation. Say Macbeth, when he is given such promises by the witches, of course, and when the king comes to his home, and when he is being persuaded and tempted by his wife that if he needs to be the king, future king, he has to kill the king. All right, and in such a context, such a situation, in that given situation, it is likely that Macbeth or a person like him will do the same thing. All right, this is universal truth. So universal truths are to be understood the kinds of thing a certain type of person will probably or necessarily say or do in a given situation. And this is the aim of poetry. Although it gives individual names to its characters, the particular facts of the historian are what, say, Alcibiades did or what happened to him. By now, the distinction has become clear. Where comedy is concerned, for comic poets build up their plots out of probable occurrences and then add any names that occur to them. They do not, like the iambic poets, write about actual people. In tragedy, on the other hand, the authors keep to the names of real people, the reason being that what is possible is credible. So this is the reason why in tragedy we have the names of real people, whereas we cannot be certain of the possibility of something that has not happened. What has happened is obviously possible, for it would not have happened if this had not been so. Nevertheless, even in some tragedies, only one or two of the names are well known and the rest are fictitious, and indeed there are some in which nothing is familiar. So here Aristotle speaks about tragedies which have real characters from history and tragedies which do not have historic characters. Okay, so, and he is concluding the chapter by saying that the poet must be a maker of plots rather than of verses, since he is a poet by virtue of his representation and what he represents in action. So a poet must be a maker of plots. Okay, so this is poetic truth. Historic truth is reality. Historic truth is fact, but poetry is probable. All right, something that may probably happen. And even if he writes about things that have actually happened, that does not make him any less a poet, for there is nothing to prevent some of the things that have happened from being in accordance with the laws of possibility and probability, and thus he will be a poet in writing about them. So with these remarks, Aristotle is concluding chapter 9. He says that maybe a poet writes about characters and incidents that have happened, and it can be justified because that there is again some probability, as it is universal. So universal things can be in poetry. So maybe some poets, some tragic playwrights write about historic characters and historic incidents. It's okay, but there must be universality in poetic truth. And historic truth is, of course, a truth about what happened, and it is not meter or it is not verse that just makes poetry. So history can be written in meter, poetry can also be, or drama can be written in meter, but it is not meter or metrical arrangement that distinguishes poetic truth and historic truth, but it is, of course, the universality or the universal appeal of the characters and incidents that can distinguish between poetic truth and historic truth. And he is asking poets to, of course, write about things that can happen, or consider the laws of possibility. So with that we come to the end of chapter 9, and now we move on to chapter 10. Chapter 10 is titled Simple and Complex Plot. Simple and complex plot. So in this chapter, Aristotle is just defining what is a simple plot and what is a complex plot. By simple action, by a simple plot, I refer to one which is single and continuous in the sense of my earlier definition, and in which the change of fortune comes about without a reversal or a discovery. So what is a simple plot? A simple plot is a plot of a drama in which the change of fortune of a character doesn't happen, or rather through, of course, a reversal or discovery. So by a simple action I refer to one which is single. The action is single and of course continuous in the sense of my earlier definition, and in which the change of fortune, so fortune comes about without a reversal or a discovery. So it's very simple and easy to understand. So a simple plot is a plot or action of a play in which there is no reversal or discovery. Okay, there is no reversal or discovery. So reversals and discoveries lead to the change of fortune. So if the change of fortune of a character can be effected without reversals or discoveries, that plot is a simple plot according to Aristotle. And in the next part of the lesson, he defines what is a complex plot. A complex action is one in which the change is accompanied by a discovery or reversal, or both. There is both a reversal as well as a discovery. And now in fact chapter 11 is defining what is a reversal and what is discovery, and we have to understand, of course, a reversal. What is a reversal? A reversal is a change from one state of affairs to its opposite, one which confirms, as I have said, to probability or necessity. Say for example, everything is quite normal, but suddenly everything is becoming abnormal, like Oedipus in Oedipus Rex he thinks that he is, of course, innocent, he hasn't done anything wrong, but suddenly when the oracle tells him that he is responsible for the very calamity, the problems in the country, there is, of course, this is something like a reversal. All right. Similarly, discovery is, okay, you don't know anything about a particular character, immediately you have a lot of evidences to understand that this is the very person, yeah, or rather, okay, we understand that, yeah, he is, of course, or rather, in your Shagundalam, of course, you have the king forgets Shagundala, but later when the ring is brought, he remembers her. So that is discovery. Okay, so we will learn about discovery, of course, when we discuss chapter 11. But a complex plot is a plot in which we have discovery and reversals to enhance, to cause the change of fortune in the action. A complex action or a complex plot is one in which the change is accompanied by a discovery or a reversal or both. These should develop out of the very structure of the plot, or so that they are the inevitable or probable consequence of what has gone before. For there is a big difference between what happens as a result of something else and what merely happens after it. So he's just mentioning simple and easy. Simple plot is a plot which has no reversal or discovery, and a complex plot is a plot in which we have, of course, reversal as well as discovery. Okay, and now we move on to chapter 11. In chapter 11, which is titled Reversal, Discovery and Calamity, Aristotle is defining in chapter 10 he has just introduced, he has just spoken about reversal and discovery. He has to define what is reversal, what is discovery. Now let's look at the definitions of reversal, discovery and calamity in chapter 11. As has already been noted, a reversal is a change from one state of affairs to its opposite, one which confirms, as I have said, to probability or necessity. In Oedipus, for example, the messenger who came to cheer Oedipus and relieve him of his fear about his mother did the very opposite by revealing to him who he was. In Lynceus again, Lynceus is being led off to execution, followed by Danus, who is to kill him, when, as a result of events that occurred earlier, it comes about that he is saved and it is Danus who is put to death. So, we have in fact a change from one state of affairs to its opposite. If everything is going in a very happy, normal way, suddenly, if it becomes very, very painful, sad and miserable, that is reversal. Okay? And what is discovery? Discovery, the Greek term for discovery is Anagnorisis. As the word itself indicates, a discovery is a change from ignorance to knowledge. What is discovery? Discovery is a change from ignorance to knowledge. Like, you don't know that this is your friend, or this is such and such a person, but when you see an object, you understand that, this is Shakuntala. Alright, so as the word refers or indicates, a discovery is a change from ignorance to knowledge, and it leads either to love or hatred between persons destined for good or ill fortune. In Shakuntala, we know that King Dushyanthan doesn't remember Shakuntala, but suddenly when he sees the ring, he remembers everything, and he is so full of sorry that he was indifferent to her in the past. So the discovery, of course, leads to hatred or love between persons destined for good or ill fortune. The most effective form of discovery is that which is accompanied by reversals, like the one in Oedipus. And this is again important. Which type of discovery is the best? And Aristotle says that the best kind of discovery is the kind of discovery we have in Oedipus, like the very oracle, just the messenger. The messenger reveals that, okay, you have done everything, you are responsible for everything. And in the last part of the chapter, Aristotle speaks to us about calamity. Say, for example, the chapter, all these chapters are about tragedy. All these chapters are elaboration of the very definition of tragedy. Okay, and in the definition, we know that a tragedy must lead to cathartic effect, purification of emotions through pity and fear. And both fear and pity are elicited from an audience when the events come by surprise, but not by chance. Okay, so this surprise element, which will add to fear and pity, is effected through reversal and discovery. And now we have, of course, calamity. What is calamity? Aristotle is defining calamity in the last part of chapter 10. So, two elements of plot, then, reversal and discovery, turn upon such incidents as this. A third is suffering. Calamity is suffering, right? Okay? Or calamity. Say for example, when you have death, when you have murder, you have suffering. Okay, somebody's father is killed, somebody's brother is killed, somebody's husband is killed, all right, somebody's lover is killed. There is calamity, there is suffering. So the suffering or calamity is the third element of the plot. So what are the elements of plot Aristotle speaks about in chapter 11? Okay, reversal is 1, discovery is number 2, and calamity is number 3. So of these 3, reversal and discovery have already been defined. Calamity is an action of a destructive or painful nature, such as death, openly represented, excessive suffering, wounding, and the like. Say for example, in Shakespeare's Hamlet, Hamlet is sad in the beginning about the death of his father, and now the ghost is asking him to take revenge, and he is suffering from, of course, delaying. He is not sure whether it is the good ghost or bad ghost, and end of the play, he of course kills the persons who are responsible for the death of his father, and we have almost 5 dead bodies on stage, and that is calamity. So calamity, what is calamity? Calamity is an action of destructive or painful nature, such as death, openly represented, excessive suffering, wounding, and like that. Okay, and now we have understood, of course, what is simple plot, complex plot, reversal, discovery, and calamity, and we come to the 12th chapter, in which we are told about the main parts of tragedy, and it is of course easy to understand. So the main parts of tragedy doesn't mean the 6 parts of six elements of tragedy we discussed some time ago, while we discussed chapter 6, in which we have the very detailed definition of tragedy, and we know that, of course, the 6 parts of tragedy it was in that chapter: plot, character, diction, thought, spectacle, and song. And now the constituent elements, okay, but in this chapter 12, he speaks of Aristotle speaks of main parts of tragedy, and these parts refers to the structural parts of tragedy. This is very, very important. So chapter 6, we have the definition of tragedy. We have, of course, the very, very elements of tragedy, or 6 parts of tragedy. But those 6 parts, and okay, the 6 parts in chapter 12 are the main parts in chapter 12 are different. The 6 parts in chapter 6 are, of course, the very constituent elements like plot, character, diction, thought, spectacle, and song. But the main parts of tragedy he speaks about in chapter 12 refers to the structural parts, like how should a tragedy begin, what should be after that, what should be after that. It refers to something like the acts, scene 1, scene 2, like that. Now let us look at the structural parts of a tragedy, chapter 12, main parts of a tragedy. So I'm reading a bit from the beginning from text. I spoke earlier of the various elements that are to be employed as the constituents of tragedy. The 6 elements, okay? The separate sections into which the work is divided are as follows. So these are the structural parts, like which are they? Number 1, prologue. Number 2, the episode. Number 3, the exode. And besides these 3, prologue, episode, and exode, we have also the choral song. And let us understand, we have to understand the difference between prologue, episode and exode. And choral song, okay, everybody knows the choral song is just the song sung by the singers, and the choral song is again divided into something like parade, stasimon. Okay, so the tragedy has three parts like prologue, episode and exode, and of course there is also a fourth part, that is choral song. Choral song is again divided into. Now let us look at that. So the structural parts of tragedy are the prologue, once again I'm repeating, the prologue, episode, exode and 4 choral song. So what is a prologue? Prologue is the whole of that part of a tragedy that precedes the parode or the entry, the first entry of the chorus. So you have the play, on stage you have the entry of the chorus or the singers, and maybe before the entry of the chorus we have some announcements. Okay, so such things before the entry of the chorus can be what is known as the prologue. So once again, what is the prologue? It is the whole of that part of a tragedy that precedes the parode or the first entry of the chorus. So what is parode? Again, P-A-R-O-D-E, parode. Parode is the first entry of the chorus. So the prologue is clear to us. Now we have an episode. What is an episode? An episode is the whole of that part of a tragedy that comes between complete choral songs. Okay, so we have the choral songs, choric song in the beginning. After that we have some characters, dialogues and incidents, and of course after the end of a scene or an act you have again choral song. So the episode is something like a scene or an act. Okay, so an episode is the whole of that part of a tragedy that comes between complete choral songs. And now the exode. What is an exode? Exode is the whole of that part of a tragedy which is not followed by a song of the chorus. Some scenes, some acts, the scene or act doesn't end with the chorus, choral song. So such scenes which do not have a choral song at the end of it, okay, can be called the exode. And now we have the fourth structural part of a tragedy, that is choral song. Choral song is simple and easy to understand, the song that is sung by the group of singers. And the choral song has again different elements, different parts. And what are they? You have something like the stasimon and komos. What is stasimon? Stasimon is a choral song without anapies or trochees. So choral song can be written in different meter, and a stasimon, S-T-A-S-I-M-O-N, is a kind of choral song which has no anapistic or trochee meter. Okay, it is written in iambic, or it is written in maybe some other dactyl meter. Okay, it is not written in anapis or trochees. That is a stasimon. And now we have another kind of choral song, and that is a komos. What is a komos? Komos is a passage of lament in which both chorus and the actors take part. So we have the choral song, and some scenes there are deaths, murders, and a komos, C-O-M-M-O-S, C-O-M-M-M-O-S, komos is a passage of lamentation in which both the chorus and the actors take part. So these are the main structural parts of tragedy. Once again, we can consolidate. The structural parts of tragedy are the prologue, the episode, exode, choral song. And choral song, two types, stasimon and komos. So with that, we can come to the end of lecture number 4 in this series of the discussion of the Poetics of Aristotle. And next day, in the next video, we will be discussing chapter 13 of the Poetics, and chapter 13 will be discussing tragic action. Which kind of action can cause pity and fear in the mind of the spectators? So with this, now we end today's lecture. Thanks a lot for listening and watching. May God bless you all. If you like this video, if you find it useful, please like it, and you can write your comment. And if you have some questions about certain areas, you can of course just write down those questions and doubts. Okay, so take care. Bye bye. See you in the next video.